London never truly slept, but on that December evening, the city seemed to hold its breath. Snow had begun to fall in slow, wandering flakes, blurring the orange glow of the street lamps outside Jamie Harrow's flat near King's Cross. He returned home late, coat damp, brain aching from another 14-hour day at the architecture firm. The world felt heavy, but nothing prepared him for what waited on the hallway floor. A small brown parcel, no postage stamp, no return address, just his name, written in a hand he knew as intimately as his own heartbeat. Eleanor Harrow. His mother had been dead for 5 years. Jamie froze. Cold spread across his chest like a sheet of ice, tingling in sharp little bursts under his ribs. He knelt slowly, touching the parcel as if it might evaporate. The handwriting was unmistakable, delicate, tight-looped, the way Eleanor always wrote when lost in her Gothic worlds. He carried it to the kitchen table and sat for almost a full minute staring at it. Snow pattered harder against the window. A distant siren wailed somewhere in Camden. Then he tore the parcel open. Inside lay 2 things. A single sheet of paper folded twice. A USB drive, cheap, black, nothing remarkable except for the way it felt warm in his hand. He unfolded the letter. 1 sentence, written in ink so dark it almost looked brown. Come home before the snow seals the moor. I'm still inside the walls. Mum. Jamie's breath hitched. A trembling laugh escaped him. Absurd, panicked. This isn't funny, he whispered to the empty room. No one answered. He slid the USB into his laptop. A lone audio file appeared. 47 seconds. E.H._last. His thumb hovered over the trackpad. This is impossible. She's gone. They never found the body because she fell. Because she ran. Because... He clicked. At first, nothing but static. Then, a woman's breathing. Harsh. Ragged. Wet. Like lungs filled with cold air that didn't want to leave. Behind it came the sound of wood bending, straining, cracking. As if beams were warping under tremendous pressure. Jamie leaned closer, heart pounding. Then Eleanor's voice. Unmistakably hers, though strained and low. It won't let me leave. Silence. End of file. Jamie ripped the USB free as if it were burning him. He pushed back from the table, rubbing his hands through his hair. His mouth had gone dry. His mother's disappearance had consumed him for years. Police reports, search teams, forensic divers. Nothing. Eventually the coroner had declared her presumed dead. Briarmore House had gone dark and silent on the moors, a relic no one wanted to enter. He thought he was done mourning. He thought he had accepted the truth. But the letter's paper crinkled in his fist, and the ache in his throat felt horribly, dangerously familiar. Something pulled at him. The moors, the house, a memory of winter nights when Eleanor read aloud her own stories by candlelight, her voice dancing through the halls of Briarmore House like it belonged to the building. He stood abruptly and grabbed his coat. Within 15 minutes, he was in his Land Rover, engine rumbling, London lights fading behind him as he headed north into the thickening storm. The road into the white. By the time he crossed into North Yorkshire, the snow had become a solid wall. The headlights carved only a tunnel of swirling white ahead of him. Wind hammered the vehicle, and the moor stretched endlessly on both sides. Dark, frozen waves beneath a livid sky. His phone lost signal somewhere south of Skipton. An hour later, the radio crackled to life. Jamie frowned. He hadn't touched it. The speakers hissed, then played the file. The exact same 47-second recording. His mother's breathing. The groaning wood. The whisper. He slammed the radio off. It clicked back on. The file replayed. He hit it again. Harder. Off. On. Same file. A cold shiver ran down his spine, deeper than the winter air. When he reached the narrow lane leading to Briarmore House, snow was nearly half a meter deep. He crawled forward, tires fighting for grip. Visibility shrank to almost nothing. The shape of the house finally revealed itself only when he was meters from the gate, towering, skeletal, its Victorian gables jutting like broken teeth into the storm. The front door stood open. Jamie's stomach dropped. He stepped out into the storm, boots crunching through fresh snow. Wind howled off the moor, whistling through the cracked windows of the house. Then he saw them. Footprints. Small, feminine, barely visible under falling snow, leading into the house, stopping abruptly halfway down the front corridor, as if the person had been lifted off the ground. He felt the pull again, that childhood feeling of the house watching him, the sense that Briarmore House was waiting. He stepped across the threshold. The floorboards vibrated beneath his feet. A deep, resonant thud pulsed through the walls. A single, heavy beat, like the entire structure had a heart that had just awakened. The chandelier flickered on, then off, then on again, shaking violently. A hot gust blew through the hall, raising the temperature so fast Jamie felt sweat bead on his neck. 28 degrees Celsius. Inside a house that hadn't had heating for 5 years. From somewhere above, below, all around him at once, a voice drifted through the plaster. "Jamie, you came back." His knees nearly buckled. "Mum." The walls didn't answer in words, but they creaked, long, stretching groans, like something enormous was shifting just behind him. The wallpaper bulged outward, swollen, pulsing faintly. He steadied himself, breathing hard, telling himself this was trauma, exhaustion, imagination. But the warmth in the air felt like breath. And the way the hall narrowed slightly, subtle, like the house inhaled, felt deliberate. He forced his legs to move. "Okay," he muttered. "One room at a time. Find the source. Find proof." The first discoveries. He reached his mother's old study. The door was ajar, as though someone had just slipped inside. He pushed it open. The room looked as if a madwoman had lived here, or a genius losing her mind. Pages were plastered over every wall, overlapping and torn. Not notebooks, not manuscripts, diary entries. Hundreds of them. Scrawled lines, feverish sketches, frantic corrections. The ink varied, black, blue, brown. Jamie stepped closer. Not ink, blood. He read the largest phrase smeared across the back wall. "It feeds on grief. I fed it for 5 years." His throat tightened. He touched the dried, flaking brown text. "Mother, what did you do?" A noise came from the wardrobe behind him. A slow, deliberate creak. Jamie froze. The wardrobe door was slightly open. He approached, pulse hammering in his neck. He pushed the door aside. Inside hung Eleanor's funeral dress, black velvet. Still immaculate, dustless despite the years. But beneath it, bones. A woman's skeleton contorted unnaturally, ribs cracked inward, skull twisted to one side, cheekbones smeared with a thin film of leathery skin. Frozen in a pose of someone crushed slowly, patiently, by something that enveloped her. Jamie staggered back, hand over his mouth. He didn't have time to process it. A soft mechanical click echoed from the corner. The old security monitor, dead for years, lit up. A small green LED blinked. On the screen, grainy footage flickered. Dated 12th March, 2019, the night Eleanor disappeared. Jamie leaned in. The camera showing the upstairs landing displayed Eleanor walking toward the hall. Then the floorboards began to ripple, rising like a wave. In 4 seconds, the boards curled upward, swallowing her, dragging her screaming into the wall. Jamie watched in frozen horror as her arms flailed, mouth wide in a silent cry. Then she was gone. The wall sealed behind her. The screen went black. Jamie staggered out of the study, gripping the doorframe, fighting for breath. "I'm hallucinating. I'm in shock. This is not real. This can't be real." But the house disagreed. The corridor dimmed as the walls constricted slowly inward, plaster cracking in a low, hungry moan. The temperature climbed again. The floor beneath his boots rose and fell like a living diaphragm. Somewhere deep within the house, Dozens of whispers murmured together. Old, young, male, female. Stay. Complete us. Be family again. Jamie backed away, heart pounding, eyes wide. He wasn't hallucinating. Briarmore House was alive, and it had been waiting for him. Jamie forced himself to breathe, slow, deep, steady. Though the air around him grew thicker by the second, humid and warm as a creature's exhale. The corridor continued narrowing, walls gently bowing inward. He could hear them, feel them. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. The house was breathing in time with him. His instincts screamed to run, but the only direction left was forward. Behind him, the corridor had shrunk perceptibly, tapering like a throat. He took a step. The floorboards quivered beneath his boots, not the judder of unstable timber, but a responsive twitch like a reflex. He rolled up from the planks in a wave. Don't, Jamie whispered. Don't start this. Not with me. A whisper answered from directly behind his left ear. You left me. His mother's voice. Jamie spun. The corridor was empty. Only the wallpaper, stretched thin as old skin, fluttered with the pulse of the house. He swallowed and pushed on. The stairs that turned against him. He made for the grand staircase, wide, sweeping, polished mahogany steps he had once slid down as a child. It was the fastest route to the attic, where he hoped to find evidence or escape or anything that wasn't breathing walls. But as his foot touched the bottom step, the wood sunk beneath him like wet clay. Jamie jerked back. The staircase shuddered once, then twisted. Not metaphorically, not imaginatively. The entire structure bent upward and inward, reshaping itself into a grotesque spiral, coils tightening and grinding, steps folded like ribs snapping inward, banister rails stretching like tendons. The house groaned, a thick, fleshy, resonant sound, as the staircase corkscrewed into an impossible formation, sealing off the upper floor. Jesus Christ, Jamie whispered. The house inhaled sharply. Behind him, whispering voices overlapped in an unintelligible chorus. Dozens, maybe hundreds, murmuring, pleading, sighing. He backed away until his shoulders pressed against the corridor wall. The plaster was warm, too warm. His mother's voice rose above the others. Don't go upstairs. It wants you there. It's hungry, Jamie. So hungry. Jamie closed his eyes. You're not her. You're not real. The voice softened. You came home for me. Don't pretend you didn't. His knees weakened. She wasn't wrong. The house remembers his grief. Jamie stumbled into the old parlor, desperate for space. The room had once been Eleanor's favorite place. Velvet chaise lounge, bay window overlooking the moors, a fireplace trimmed with silver filigree. It looked exactly the same, dustless, untouched, as if Eleanor had just stepped out for tea. He approached the fireplace and touched the mantelpiece. His fingers caught on faint scratches carved into the wood. He leaned closer. A date, 14th December, 2018, and a sentence beneath it. He wants the sad ones most. Jamie's throat clenched. He remembered that winter. He had been in London, wrapped in work, too busy to visit her. They had argued on the phone, something petty, about Christmas, about responsibility, about nothing that mattered. She had sounded tired, and he'd been cold, detached. He pressed his forehead to the mantelpiece. I'm sorry, Mum. The room responded violently. The floor rose in a great exhale, almost pitching him forward. The wallpaper bulged outward as the house swelled with his guilt, feeding on it, pulsing thicker and louder. The voices grew clearer, not whispers now, but a frantic choir. Stay, 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 stay. Jamie backed away, shaking. Every painful memory, every regret, made the house stronger, alive. He had to shut it out, had to fight it. He grabbed the nearest heavy object, an iron poker by the fireplace, and bolted from the room. But the house followed. As he ran through the hall, the lights overhead flickered in frantic, irregular flashes. Shadows danced across the floor in long, twisted shapes. The walls undulated with each flicker, contracting and expanding like the throat of some enormous beast. The front door, his way out, slammed shut with a deafening crack. Jamie skidded to a halt. No, 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 no. He threw his weight against the door. It didn't budge. It felt like pushing against stone. He screamed in frustration and swung the iron poker with all his strength. It bounced off harmlessly. Behind him, the house sighed, a deep, satisfied, chilling sound. "This is not happening," he whispered. "I'm not dying in here. I refuse." But the house didn't care about his refusal. It cared only for the grief simmering inside him, the guilt, the shame, the unanswered questions he had carried since Ilyana vanished. It wanted to feed. The basement. He needed a place the house wasn't watching, if such a thing existed. He ran toward the only area that had always felt dead, cold, untouched by Ilyana's presence. The cellar. Even as a child, he'd hated it. Ilyana had forbidden him from going down there. Nothing but mold and bad memories, she used to say. Now it might be his only refuge. He yanked open the basement door, ducked through and slammed it behind him. The stairwell smelled of soil and rot. Each step creaked as though reconsidering its own existence. Jamie descended carefully, poker in hand. At the bottom, he flicked the old wall switch. Surprisingly, the light came on. A single bulb illuminated the cellar. Stone floors, rusted shelving, old trunks, all coated in a thin layer of frost. The house was quiet here. Not dead, just slower, like lungs paused mid-breath. Jamie exhaled shakily and scanned the room. Something hung from the central beam, a set of black garments. He approached, dread sinking in his stomach. Ilyana's morning dress, the same one from the wardrobe in the study. He touched the fabric. It was warm. Beside it, a human skeleton lay contorted on a wooden chair, limbs bent inward unnaturally, skull crushed as if squeezed by an immense force. Jamie stepped back, horrified. Christ! A faint clicking sound came from behind him. He turned sharply. A small security camera perched in the corner. Ancient, rusted, had powered on. Its red light blinked. Then a monitor on the wall crackled to life. How? There was no electricity in the entire house. The footage played automatically. Date: 12th March, 2019, 3:14. Ilyana's voice filled the cellar, panting, sobbing, begging. On screen, she ran down the very stairs Jamie had just descended. Her hair was wild, eyes wide with terror. She turned to look behind her, at something the camera didn't show, then sprinted into the cellar. "Please," she choked. "Please, stop. Just stop." The walls around her pulsed. Boards bent inward. The ceiling dipped. The stone floor rippled like liquid. Ilyana screamed. Floorboards curled upward, engulfing her legs. The walls pressed in. In 4 seconds, she vanished into the stone as though swallowed. Jamie collapsed to his knees. His mother hadn't run away. She hadn't disappeared. She hadn't even died, not properly. The house had eaten her. He felt a sob tear out of his chest. And the house answered, all at once. The lights blew out. The floor vibrated violently. Moist, hot air rushed through the cracks around the walls. Footsteps thundered across the ceiling above him. Dozens of them, pounding in circles. Voices shrieked through the floorboards. "He's here. He's here. He's ready. He's ours." Jamie scrambled backward, slipping on ice. The stairs behind him twisted with a sickening crunch, steps warping into spirals just like the staircase above. The house no longer wanted him trapped on the ground floor. It wanted him deeper, closer. So it opened the far wall. Bricks cracked apart with a wet sound, peeling open like ribs. A dark corridor revealed itself, narrow, organic looking, its walls pulsing faintly. A smell like hot breath and old rot rolled out. Jamie shook violently. No, no, I'm not going in there. But then something whispered from within the corridor. A voice he'd know anywhere. His mother's voice. Jamie, please, hurry, before it finds me again. Jamie's blood ran cold. Mum, another whisper. Closer, more desperate. Jamie, help me. I'm still alive. He didn't think, didn't plan, didn't breathe. He stepped into the dark corridor, and the wall sealed shut behind him. The darkness pressed against Jamie like damp cloth, heavy and suffocating. The narrow corridor felt less like a hallway and more like an oesophagus. Warm, slick, pulsing faintly under his palms whenever he reached out to steady himself. The air tasted metallic, like dried blood and old iron. He moved slowly, poker held tight in his trembling hand. Above him, the muffled thunder of footsteps continued, dozens of them racing across the floors of the house in impossible patterns. Sometimes the footsteps overlapped each other. Sometimes they stopped abruptly, replaced by wet dragging noises. Sometimes they scuttled like something with too many limbs. Jamie forced his breathing to quiet. The corridor seemed to react to each inhale, swelling slightly, compressing with each exhale, as though sinking with him. Don't think about it. Find your mother. Get her out. Burn the place. Just move. The corridor bent downward, twisting in unnatural curves. Jamie's boots skidded on the moist floor, and something warm trickled over the top of his hand. He yanked his fingers back instinctively. The walls were sweating. By the time he reached the bottom of the descending passage, he felt as though he'd crawled inside the bowels of the house. And there, at the end of the corridor, stood a door. A Victorian oak door, blackened by age yet glistening faintly, as though coated in a thin membrane. On the top panel, etched in faded gold leaf, were the words, "The Womb Room, 1897. Jamie's stomach lurched. He reached for the brass handle. The handle twitched under his touch. He froze. Then he pushed. The door opened with a wet, sucking sound. The womb room. The room was enormous, far larger than the house's floor plan should allow. The walls were not walls at all, but translucent, veined membranes stretched tight, pulsating with slow rhythmic contractions. Warm reddish light glowed through them, like lanterns behind flesh. The smell was overwhelming, decay, rot, old sorrow, and something else beneath it, something sweet and clawing. Suspended within the walls were shapes. People, some skeletal, some mummified, some disturbingly intact, all curled into tight fetal positions, as though held in some grotesque gestational state. Their limbs folded inward, their mouths stitched shut with thick cords of root-like wood. Jamie staggered forward, tears blurring his vision. He tried to look at anything other than the bodies. He failed. His eyes landed on one shape directly ahead, larger, closer to the surface, pressed so tightly into the membrane he could see the features clearly. His mother, Eleanor Harrow, still alive. Her eyes were wide, pupils dilated, darting toward him in jerky, frantic motions. Her skin was pale, stretched thin over her cheekbones. Wooden cords were threaded cruelly through her lips, sealing her mouth shut. Jamie's jaw dropped. Mom. Her eyes overflowed with tears. She was conscious, trapped, suffering. All this time, she raised one trembling finger against the inside of the membrane and began to scrape weakly, the gesture slow and labored. Jamie stepped closer. What are you trying to? With her ragged nail, she scrawled words into the membrane, using her own blood as ink. Burn me with it. Jamie's breath hitched in his chest. No, absolutely not. I'm here to get you out. I'll cut you free. The membrane around her contracted violently, as if in response to his defiance. Eleanor's body was squeezed inward, her ribs tightening under the pressure. Her eyes rolled back in agony. No! Jamie lunged forward and slammed the poker against the membrane. It bounced back uselessly, like striking thick hide. Behind him, Dozens of whispers rose from the other bodies. Stay, 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 stay. Some voices were childlike, some ancient, some careenly familiar, the tone of women and men from forgotten centuries. Jamie felt something shift behind him. He turned. The doorway he had entered from was sealing shut, the frame twisting like cartilage, the exit shrinking. He was being swallowed into the room. No, no, no. He sprinted back and shoved his shoulder against the soft wall. It held firm. The whispers increased to frantic murmuring. Complete us. Complete us. Feed with us. Forever. Jamie backed away to the center of the room, chest heaving. He knew what the house wanted. To consume him as it had consumed Ileana. To grow stronger on his grief, on his regret, on everything he wished he had done differently. But Ileana had told him the only way through this. Her last plea was burned into the membrane. Burn me with it. Jamie's mouth trembled. I can't kill you. Her eyes met his. Not pleading, commanding. A mother protecting her son in the only way left. Jamie's knees buckled as he whispered, I'm so sorry. And the house felt the grief in his bones. It inhaled deeply. The membrane walls tightened. The bodies inside convulsed. The floor rippled like a heartbeat gone wild. Jamie stumbled backward and his boot struck something. A metal canister. His backup jerry can of fuel. He had brought it in from the Land Rover without even remembering. The house hadn't taken it away. Because it wasn't afraid. Because it thought he would never use it. Jamie picked up the canister. Unscrewed the lid. A wave of fumes swept through the room. He splashed the petrol across the membrane walls. The bodies inside shuddered. The whispers rose to panicked cries. Stop! 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 The house groaned, a thunderous, agonized sound that shook the room. The floor convulsed, trying to topple him. Tangles of wood and sinew erupted from the ground, grasping at his ankles. Jamie yanked free. He soaked the floor, the walls, the base of the womb room, and finally, Ileana's membrane. She didn't flinch. Her eyes softened. Forgiving him, begging him. Jamie flicked open his lighter. His hand shook violently. Mum, I love you. Her head tilted slightly. Permission. Jamie dropped the lighter. The house screams. The ignition was instantaneous. Flames erupted in a blinding, violent burst. The membrane walls shrieked, not metaphorically. The sound was real, hideous. A chorus of human wails and splintering wood merging into a single inhuman scream. Fire rippled across the room, devouring flesh-like walls, blackening root-like cords, igniting the trapped bodies. The house went berserk. The floor exploded upward. Wooden tendrils lashed out, snaring Jamie's legs, yanking him to the ground. More hands, human-shaped, carved from wood, erupted from the floorboards, seizing his wrists, dragging him toward the burning wall. Jamie screamed, kicking wildly. Flames climbed higher. The house convulsed so violently the entire structure tilted, beams snapping like brittle bones. Over the roar of fire, a single voice cut through. Ileana, finally free, finally audible. Asterisk, thank you, Jamie. Asterisk, 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 asterisk. The membrane around her body burst in a gout of fire. Her figure crumbled instantly, consumed, disintegrating into ash that scattered across the burning room. Jamie's eyes widened. No, Mum. A wooden hand clamped around his throat. Another wrapped around his ankle, pulling him toward the center of the room as the floor opened like a monstrous mouth. He struggled, kicking, gasping, tearing free with one arm. He crawled toward the doorway, now half melted, half collapsed, screaming as burning splinters tore into his palms. The house screamed in fury, the entire structure folding inward on itself, trying to seal him in, crush him, keep him. Jamie reached the doorway. A final explosion of fire blasted behind him, hurling his body through the collapsing corridor. He tumbled into the main hall, coughing, half-blinded. The front door, earlier sealed like stone, lay shattered on the floor as if the house had lost the strength to hold it. He ran. He didn't look back. He hurled himself out into the snowstorm just as Bryamore House imploded in a thunderous roar. The last thing he heard from inside was a deep, shuddering exhale. And then, silence. 3 days later, the storm had passed. Fire crews sifted through the ash where Bryamore House had once stood. They found charred beams, warped metal, and stone blackened beyond recognition. No bodies, not even bones. But they found something else. A recorder, melted, but still functional. They pressed play. A slow, steady sound filled the air. Breathing, not human, not animal. Something vast, patient, alive. And then a man's whisper, faint, almost tender. "Mum, I'm home." The rescuers froze. Before they could analyze the recording, one shouted from outside. Tracks. Footprints.